Hi, everybody. Pastor Jim here from Fellowship Community Church, just with this day's devotional thought. I was just reading Psalm 121, very familiar portion to many of us. And this is what it says right at the beginning. You'll recognize this, I'm sure. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. And then it goes on, and we're going to talk about that. But I was just really struck with that as I was reading it. What a great remembrance that is. You see, this is called a psalm of ascent, and usually thought of as people reading it as they were headed up to Jerusalem during a time of festival or a pilgrimage, maybe especially those from the exile as they were coming back. And the thought of it is, first of all, just looking ahead, the hills could be the hills around Jerusalem, most likely that. And the psalmist is saying this: I'm looking to those hills, possibly even the hill of Mount Zion where the temple is. I'm looking to that. No, and for one who is in exile, for instance, that's a really stirring thought. I want to be back there. I want to be back where, like it was before with my ancestors. I want to be there. And so I look to that, or as they're climbing up, then as maybe it's a time when they are actually back there, and they're saying, "Hey, this is my climb up. This is looking to those hills." But get this, he says, as he says, "Where does my help come from?" He makes it very plain as he writes this: the help does not come from the hills, does it? The help is not from there, or even the Temple Mount, if that's what he means. He goes on to say this and makes it such a strong statement. My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Isn't that a great remembrance? Even as he thinks about it, he's saying it's not about my religious actions, as important as they may be. It's not about where I even go to do that worship, as significant as that is. He is saying it is the Lord Himself. That is where my help comes from. He describes Him in this way: the God, the maker, the creator of heaven and earth. So, first of all, as he says, this is the one who really helps me, is Creator God, the one who has made everything that we see, all that we experience, all that we know. You could read in there as maker of heaven and earth. You can read in there, I believe, sustainer, because that's who He is, as He has created, and then He sustains, and as He goes with us. Just a quick remembrance, remember during this time of isolation and everything that's going on, that first of all, not to put our eyes toward any particular thing, building, or group of people, as much as we want to be together, but to put our eyes first of all towards the Lord, because He indeed is our help. That's a good thing to remember. And it's a good thing to help me, just I think about in all of what God is. He is my help and He is my strength, isn't He? And what the writer says here, as the psalmist writes here, again by the Spirit of God, he uses a phrase here that I think is so, so significant. He uses the phrase, the Lord watches over you. He does it at least 5 times, maybe 6, if you look at He will keep you from harm. He says this, as he says, my help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. And then he says this, He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you, number 1, will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel, number 2, will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over you. There's another one. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. His theme is this: who is my helper? My helper is the Lord. And this is what is true about Him. He watches over me. Isn't that a great picture? I know that there's a famous painting, and then also just some pictures you've seen of fathers, maybe new fathers especially, just looking over at their newborn child. And so often the tenderness that is there. They want to protect their little one. I remember when we first had Carrie, she's our oldest, just wanting to look at her and even hold her, and the desire of a father to protect his little girl. So strong. That's God for us. But there's a problem with us, and that is at some point we fall asleep. At some point, we have to put the baby down or fall down with them. We sit there and try to hold them or hold them on our chest and lay back, and next thing we know, we have dozed away. Well, God doesn't do that. He said he watches over you without ever sleeping or dozing off. He's always there. He's always watching. He says he goes before us. He won't let our foot slip. The idea is if you're going up the hill towards Jerusalem through a rocky, tough path, he said he's not going to let your foot slip. He's going to hold on to it firm. I was, I believe, 9 years old, and we had climbed up a mountain in Colorado called Mount Whitney. And it was myself and my brother and a couple other friends and our friend's father. We got to the top, we started coming down, and suddenly we were at a place that we really couldn't go up, and going down was really hard. And so I remember Mr. Tossig going down before us, and he would stand below and hold his hand like that and help put our foot on the little ledge as we were coming down. He wasn't going to let us slip. And we got down safely, and it was a great adventure. God does that for us. He doesn't let us slip. We can trust him. He is our help. He watches over us. He doesn't let us slip. He doesn't sleep or slumber. He says, I won't let the sun beat down on you by day or the moon by night. Talking about even in that culture, the heat coming from the sun, or at night, possibly the deep cold that can come in the desert. God protects us. The Lord will keep you from all harm, he says. I don't think that doesn't mean that you won't have hard things, but it does mean that he's watching over us and he goes with us through those hard things. And at the last, he says, I'm going to watch over your coming and going. The idea that is through every part of life. Every part of life, I'm with you. I am watching over you. And so, as we go through this time of isolation, waiting out this coronavirus, wondering what's going on, know this, remember this, that the Lord himself is our help. He is watching over us. And even as you go through things today, remember, God hasn't fallen asleep. God's watching you. He's got you. And he is working for you. He is working the best for you, for his glory and your good. He watches over us. Trust that you're going to have a great day, and we'll see you again next time.